Bam, we're live. Modern Relics podcast. I'm Angel. He's Lucky. You guys know the drill. What's going on? Happy holidays.
Glad to be back.
Yeah. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. I want to once again apologize for not being here last week, but it was kind of a hectic week last week, and we're okay.
It's fine.
Yeah, they're okay. We're okay. We're all okay.
Everyone's
But
good.
We're back.
It's good to hear.
Yeah. No, we had a very productive but good couple of weeks here, and I got no complaints, and been getting into the holiday spirit. You and I are both big Christmas guys.
Yeah.
And so
I'm still waiting for my spirit bug, man.
Yeah.
This is how it normally goes for me, and I'm not joking. Like, when I see eggnog on the store shelves, it's Christmas time. I don't care if that happens the day after Halloween. Like, it's Christmas time now. And they just haven't, I don't know, like, some neighbors have some, decorations out. I'm like, I'm trying to catch the holiday spirit. I feel like it's coming, but I just haven't been there yet. I haven't got there yet. So yeah, but it's that time of year. You've been traveling a lot. You had trips to Indiana, you had trips to here, you had trips all over the country. You went to Peru. No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, not quite that far.
Not quite that far. That's next year. I actually just booked tickets on a Black Friday sale for 2025 for Spain. I'm going to go to Barcelona. I've never been, and I'm a huge Anthony Gaudi fan, and I want to go see Park Güell and all that stuff because it's cool architecture and the Gothic quarters and all that Johnson. So I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I haven't traveled since fantastic. 2019, man.
Yeah. Yeah, you started a thing that you look like was going to be a fairly regular, if not, semi-regular kind of thing for you to go see parts of the world you hadn't seen.
Yeah.
And then you started it the year before the world collapsed.
That's true.
And then now it's back to the point where you're feeling comfortable enough to maybe stretch those traveling wings a little bit and go see some things that you may not get a chance to in any other portion of your life. And so I'm excited for you on that.
I'm thrilled as well. Like I've done a ton of travel for over at Redacted where I work, which has been really cool, but also, yeah, I'd like to go see all these things while I still have a valid passport and the world hasn't ended and all that stuff yet. So I think it'll be cool. But if the price is right, I'm going to check it out. So I'm going to go check it out.
Well, I think the administration is right for travel. I think now we're in a position where it almost automatically feels safer to travel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. It probably has a lot to do with a lot of the news that's been coming through of a lot of global entities kind of retracting or backing off of things immediately. And so you kind of sense that there is going to be not just in the Middle East, but just essentially an overarching ceasefire for a little bit until people realize, until things start to settle, and then hopefully maybe it continues for the foreseeable future. But it just feels that way. I mean, even like I'm a pretty paranoid traveler. I don't like being away from my wife and kids, especially if it's out of country bounds. Like I wouldn't even consider it.
For me, it depends on like what country and what's the premise. Right. If I'm in a country where I can passably speak the language and I can get by, and it's, presumably a NATO country, okay, cool. I can do some of the tourist things without falling into the big tourist traps, but I usually have intent when I make decisions like this. Like there's some shit I want to go see, or there's something that's a cool event that I want to go check out. But I totally get it. Like if it was just to throw a dart and be impulsive to that degree, no shot. I would want to do that with a business and a wife and kids, and yeah.
And what I'm saying is that even now, like especially over the last 5 years, I've been like absolutely not even going to consider it.
Like off limits.
But but now I'm like, like if it arose, I don't think I would probably jump on the chance.
Yeah.
But
no, it's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah.
Also, I know my camera's glitching out. Sorry, everybody. I will try to uninstall and reinstall it after the show. It just randomly wasn't working when I started, and I plugged it in, and now it's glitching. So we'll figure it out. Sorry about that.
But yeah, I had less exciting travel as far as geographically, but on an emotional level, it was actually pretty amazing. So I think last time we
Tell me the
spoke-
architecture of Indiana State is not near as cool as cathedrals in Spain.
I mean, as far as adventure goes, we did see a dead body. So, but it was basically in the middle of a cornfield town on a road. It looked like it was trying to cross the street, and somebody hit somebody. We were on our way to dinner,
God.
and yeah,
Happy
yeah,
holidays.
Happy holidays. Yeah, it was right before Thanksgiving. But yeah, so I had this opportunity.
Laugh, the setup was perfect.
My sister, for those who don't know, my sister and I were born of the same two parents, and were raised by our mother, and for the vast majority of my life and the entirety of hers, a stepfather, and so who is, other than tertiary, not really essential to this story. However, my sister, not knowing our real father, because my mother and my father split when my mom was pregnant with my sister, so she never met our real father. Now I'd been, raised with him until I was 6, and then reconnected with him when I was 27 after my daughter was born, and she was 9 months old. Went out there, and for 18 years had established a great relationship with my father. He's a good man. He's raised 4 other kids that are now adults.
It's also a big gap. So like, burgeoning a new relationship as an adult, probably a much different perspective.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And so, but given the time, over the course of 18 years, he's proven to be not only somebody that I'm, obligated to love through blood, as you do with fathers, but you don't have to necessarily like them. And I like my dad, and we get along. He's a good man. He did a good job with the other kids, and he's a wonderful grandfather to all of his grandchildren. And he does live out in the middle of rural Indiana, so the distance makes it difficult for closeness. But I still consider him a dear friend and a great dad, and I've loved him. His one dream was to reconnect with the daughter he never met, and that was not on the table. It wasn't in the cards because my sister had been raised by a stepfather that she was loyal to, and that loyalty in the last couple of years has waned rather dramatically and significantly, due to circumstances that also are not germane to the conversation. However,
stuff happens.
But in this particular case, he'd always ask, "Hey, when do you think it'll happen? When do you think I'll be able to meet her? When do you think she'll warm up to the idea? When?" And I kept telling him, "Look, Dad, she's her own person. I've never been able to have that type of influence over her. I can just basically lay seeds and water the seeds as time goes with our relationship and me talking about it and hoping that over the course of time, her interest peaks." And
your sister's not simply one that can just be told what to do and enjoy it type of thing.
Not even remotely. So, in fact, that's them's fighting words for the most part. So I just played it slow and steady, and it was 18 years in the making. But she approached me and said, "Hey, if I go out there to meet him, would you come with me?" To which, of course, I said, absolutely, 100%, name the time and place. And so she bought tickets for her and her husband and 2 of her 3 kids. Her son had to stay behind and work, but her 2 daughters and then me. And so I was a bag of nerves for 2 days prior, at least.
You've now adopted moderator role.
Oh, I have?
No, I mean, in this situation, you are now the moderator.
That is
Yeah.
true. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, you just did that just now, and then decided to tell me about it about
No.
the pod. That was like, that's a useless role for me in this
Yeah.
situation.
Right now, I choose to bring it up.
Yeah. I was like, that
I
was
bought
so
some new
odd.
pants. Like, what? No, no, you've adopted the moderator role in this situation of uncertainty between your sister and your dad.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it was. And it was something that I had to, really, because anything and everything could go wrong. They're
Sure.
both, in very volatile headspaces. They're both in, vulnerable headspaces. So it was something that I was like, it could go wrong in a dozen different ways. And so my job was to make sure to play the bridge and make sure that it went well. And it did. It went like we get on the plane, we get there, we go to the hotel, and then we drive to their house. And I knock on the door with family in tow and, open it up. And it was immediately, I mean, it was a little, a little uncomfortable at first just because. And then I was like, this is dad, this is your daughter, and Laura, this is your dad. And it was less like I expected more emotion. And I think they were all careful not to explode emotionally on each other for the sake of each other. Like I know dad was very much careful with it because he did not want to burden her with sobbing, right out of the gate. And same thing with her. She didn't want to show a chink in the armor. She didn't want to show that she was at all nervous or emotional about meeting her father for the first time. So it was very cordial. There were hugs, but that was kind of the limit of what they were going to, the underbelly that they were going to expose to each other. So,
Sure.
And then we went to dinner and it was very nice. There was a lot of get to know you stuff. And then over the course of the next 2 days, she got to meet all of her brothers and sisters. She got to meet, her stepmom. She got to meet and spend time. And her girls got to spend time with cousins. And I was a little worried there due to just some cultural differences.
Sure.
But they blended immediately and surprisingly well. And they were playing together and baking cookies together, and it was great. And dad and I cooked on Saturday night together because we both enjoy cooking. And so we cooked for the whole family, and everyone came over, and it was really pleasant.
Dude, that's awesome.
It went really well. So, and then I immediately flew back on Sunday night. That was Friday, and then Sunday flew back, got back after midnight, then flew into Spokane. My daughter's birthday, her 19th birthday, was on Monday. So we spent the day getting that prepped and then had dinner. Almost got in a fist fight with my father-in-law, who I hadn't seen in like 2 years, at dinner. But we managed to avoid that.
That's a real coin flip, those family dynamics from you're riding a high, you land, things just,
Yeah. And I'm feeling good. So I'm like, invite him. We haven't seen him in years. I'll pay for his dinner.
It's Thanksgiving.
Like,
come on.
There's this sense of forgiveness in me that is like just pouring out. Like, I'm just like, oh man, like anybody, if Laura and my dad can get like, we can find forgiveness across the board.
Yeah.
And then I invite my father-in-law.
People are nearly holding hands at this point.
Yeah. And he wants to fight me at Texas Roadhouse about illegal immigration. And so like it was, and how a Mai Tai is made, so it's just insane, but it's fine. It worked out. And then we went to, after that, I had Tuesday to basically pack up, and then I flew out super early Wednesday morning down to you, where then I got off the plane, got my car, and then immediately drove 2.5 hours down to Lake Havasu to basically go have a pre-Thanksgiving dinner with my grandmother, my aunt and uncle, and my cousin and her husband, and then kind of give them an update of how it went in Indiana.
Yeah.
So because this is my dad's side of the family, and so
you're basically on tour for like 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah, yeah. And so then I get bullied by a 4'9", 87-year-old woman into staying the night there for for the night, and which was fine. It was great. I enjoy my grandmother, so stayed the night there, and then I got up the next morning and then drove up directly to work at Mad Monk in Vegas, and had a great week there. You and I got to spend some time together. We got to go play with some pew pews, and we got to you made a wonderful prime rib, and we got to hang out and chat, and then work was really good. The crew there is really nice. I'm really enjoying it there. And then they had they had a shop Thanksgiving that we got to prep for, and they kind of had
that was actually pretty fun, honestly.
Yeah,
the preparation part was more fun than the hour drive it took me to get there, hang out for an hour, and then drive home or whatever. But yeah,
right. But yeah, it was they had what they called Monksgiving, which was the shop Thanksgiving thing. So, and they brought around a list of things that you were going to bring, like a potluck. And I was looking down the list, and it was a bunch of sides. And it's easy for people to make sides, but like the big heavy protein is probably the part that is the most difficult. And I was like, well, I do have access to a smoker. I can't smoke a whole turkey because that's going to take 12 to 15
day.
hours.
Right.
Yeah. I was like, but I can go get those turkey breasts, and I can actually smoke a couple of those. And so we did that, but also there's one girl there who's one of the shop manager girls, and she's super sweet, and she's been super helpful for me. And her name's Blue, and she's the only one who is either vegetarian or vegan. She's vegan.
Right.
And I was like, well, this feels kind of mean on my part that she's the only one that I'm leaving out. And so I was like, what would you like? And then she's all, I don't know, I eat tofu. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, ugh, tofu.
Yeah.
And if anybody knows me, and this is something that I told her too, I was like, and if you ask my kids, what is dad's catchphrase? My kids will look at you, roll their eyes, and go, the only thing that tastes better than an animal is a baby version of that animal.
Mm-hmm.
That is the level of carnivore that I am.
Yeah.
It is not a meal unless there's meat in it.
That's salad. That's what my food eats. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's either a salad or a side dish, and it's not a true meal unless it has a meat in it. And so for me to go out of my way to at all cater to a vegan is
it's like aligning planets. Yeah. It's not a usual thing.
So, but I took on the challenge. And so I went to the store not knowing anything about this. And so I walk in thinking I'm going to have to buy like a $14 brick of tofu. And so I look around and I'm like, this can't be right. And it was only like $2.40 for a brick of tofu.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically compressed butcher's paper, isn't it?
Essentially. Yeah. It's what it smelled like.
Yeah.
So I bring that home, and I was like, well, I got to grease this up somehow, and I don't really know how I'm going to do it. So I bought some vegan butter, which I think still is in your fridge.
No, it isn't.
Oh, okay. It is not. It has found its way.
I was like, oh, look, someone left something behind. And that went straight into the bin.
So it honestly, it looked like Crisco, and it acted like Crisco.
Yeah, and I thought it was motor oil just congealed somehow.
Yeah. So, but I fake buttered that piece of tofu up, and I seasoned it with all the same turkey seasonings, and we went, I don't know, let's see if this works.
Let's smoke a block of bean curd with seasonings on it and just see what happens, which is exactly what we did.
Yeah. And apparently we did a damn fine job.
That's great. Hopefully she's not like that really sucked. They obviously didn't know what they were doing, and I was being nice, but we'll take the credit because it was given.
I know it didn't suck. And here's the thing is not only did she come up and I was like, answer me honestly, because if it sucks, I want to know because I've never done this before.
Right. Yeah.
She came back and said it was fantastic. And so did JD, who's not a vegan, but he can eat in that realm.
He dabbles.
He dabbles.
Yeah.
But he tried it too and said the same thing, unprovoked. But the real test was actually the next day. I'm tattooing, and she went and got the rest of it and ate the rest of it. So she went back for seconds
Yeah.
and
Well, I
polished it
mean,
off.
it
So-
could be that I snuck into the kitchen and covered that shit in lard and then I'm just kidding.
probably. But I just now I can put that on my resume as tofu master, which
Tofu
is-
master.
yeah.
The conditions have to be right. I need to be in Nevada. The humidity has to not exist. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, then and then I flew home and had a great week down there, but I won't be back down there all of December. I am coming back January and I am coming back February. So,
Yeah. That'll be fun.
I've been in contact with your buddy Curtis.
Mm-hmm.
So,
No, that's good news. Yeah. So Christmas is going to basically just be around the home and, you know, usual work schedule plus home schedule and all that stuff. Any exciting plans? Are you guys doing like different family member houses, or is it all just focal point around you?
Not that I know of. Right now, my daughter is house sitting for my sister. She's in Hawaii, and so she is. But she's been popping by after work to help decorate the house for Christmas, and the kids are very much in the Christmas spirit. We went and got on Sunday. We went and got a tree.
Nice.
And we have vaulted ceilings this year in this new place, and we're like, we can get one of them big boy trees. You know, normally we get a 6 or 7 footer, right? We get one that's taller than me, but it's just kind of a regular sized tree. But this year we're like, let's get like a 10 footer. Why not? Like, and so we went out and got ourselves like a 9 or 10 foot tree, and then even put it on some crates. And so it's huge. So we had to get a ladder to actually decorate the tree this year. Which I think is going to actually happen maybe tonight, but we're already.
You know, I thought about doing
Christmas
like one of those obnoxious trees where I have to go up onto the upstairs balcony to like lean over and decorate it and stuff like that. Cause I've got the space vertically. But yeah,
you do.
We talked about this. There are no ponderosa pines this far south. It's like, here's a cactus in a jar, you know?
Yeah. My dear friends, Senator Ben Taves and his wife Alicia, they have a old, renovated, beautiful downtown Coeur d'Alene house, and it is a basement level, then a ground level, and then 2 more levels on top of it. So technically, it's 4 stories, but it's got this staircase, this old wooden staircase. It's all like beautiful, and it kind of winds up all the way up, right?
Yeah.
But there's this channel all the way down into the living room that goes all the way up the staircase. And they get this enormous tree that goes all the way up to the 3rd story.
Wow.
And my wife and I are like, we just want to watch you put that thing in there.
Yeah, I was going to say, do they have professional movers bring in the damn tree? Or
they literally just run it through the front door and then just thread it like a needle up and just up in there, and it's incredible. But yeah, I've always kind of been curious about the logistics of doing that. But we are in Christmas mode here. As far as plans go, I do not know. I mean, obviously, you know, my mom will be over. I don't know if we're going to have any other friends or family over for dinner. I typically do not care for Christmas Eve overnight visitors. I like that morning to be just about me and my family. But as far as dinner goes, I'm sure we'll probably have a handful of guests. And then as far as activities go, we may there was something that we really like to do. And I'm trying to think.
Well, you do the hot wings on Christmas Eve, right?
That's true. But I'm talking about actual, event stuff. And I think we may go on one of those. I have a client who is a captain of one of or a couple of those Coeur d'Alene ferry boats.
Oh, cool!
And so we may get to do the Christmas ferry thing.
Yeah, I've been out there late in the year on one of those for like an hour. Very cold. Super cold.
Stupid cold.
Yeah.
But he's a good client of mine and said he could get me on there. So,
cool.
And then, probably there might be an ice skating evening, something like that, but it really depends on time, but we've already got the tree out of the way, and that's kind of the big deal for us. So now it's just watching Christmas movies and eating too much while my wife bakes ridiculous stuff. It's just insane how much baked goods she doesn't eat that I have to in this house. But
that's a pretty good trade-off, though. All things considered, like, oh, you just want me to eat these things? Can do.
Yeah. My gut doesn't really share that sentiment, but my mouth and my brain does. So
no, that's
what
cool.
about you? Like,
I think my traveling will ramp up for Christmas, where yours was more around Thanksgiving. Like, I'm going to Washington. I'm going to spend some time with some friends there. I'm going to go see my father. We haven't done a Christmas together in 20 years, maybe. Sounds about right.
Has it been that long?
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't done Christmas with my family in 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Probably more than that. 20 to 24 years. Sounds about right. So that'll be interesting. He's going to be over at his girlfriend's place, and they've invited me to swing through. So I'm going to do that and then come back. But yeah, Thanksgiving was pretty chill. Like, obviously, we were hanging out for a lot of that week. I was working for most of it. I did Thanksgiving over at my buddy Chris's house with his wife, Megan. They put on a really awesome spread. He had a couple of family members over. I think I brought dinner rolls and a bottle of wine, so it was like pretty low key as far as like prep. So,
did you get sent home with a bag full of shellfish?
No, but one of those like foiled tins full of, he did a ham and a turkey for how many was it? 6 people. And I mean, it was like massive amount of food. So it was a lot of fun though. Got to hang out there for a while. And then just kind of came home and chilled, which was nice because work's been bananas. Tis the season where I'm at to be busy as well. So a lot of that going on. But yeah, I'll have some Christmas traveling coming up here pretty soon. Got all that booked. So yeah, it should be hopefully chill. I mean, I hate the airports around the holidays. Hate them.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, it's always like, take a deep breath. We're going in kind of thing.
It was brutal when I got off the plane in Spokane.
Yeah.
In Spokane, when I got back, like, first of all, the Vegas airport is the easiest airport in the world.
It's the most efficient. Yeah. Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it. It's incredible every time I'm there.
Well, I always joke with people. It's like, no, you get off the plane, they hand you a drink, slap you on the ass, put you out on the strip, and then before you realize what's going on, you're back in the airport. They hand you a drink, slap you on the ass, and put you on your plane. It's a turnstile there. Yeah.
Yeah. But when I finally got into Spokane, I have never, like, Aaron was backed up to come pick me up for like a mile, and there wasn't a single place to park.
Yeah.
The whole like cell phone lot was completely, and this was after midnight. So like, in the baggage claim area was just massively packed full of people. I couldn't believe it. I've never seen the Spokane airport like that. And it was 2 days before Thanksgiving. So that, it was everyone traveling in from that, but I hate airports during the holidays. So
I'm trying to position it like this is how bad it is. If you guys are potentially listening from a different country, like, I have positioned my travel to show up. I think Christmas lands on Wednesday. I'm going to show up Sunday night on a late flight and then leave Friday on a late flight with the express intent that I also have all day Saturday and all day Sunday to figure out how to get home because I have to work on Monday. Like, that's the spread. Like, I could stay through the weekend, but like, nah. Like, traffic is horrible. Prices are sky high. People are crazy around the holidays. Everyone is the most important reindeer in the room. They want to be invited to all the reindeer games at all times. And so you just kind of have to deal with it. So hopefully it's going to be smooth. It's like a 2.5 hour flight. It's not that bad, but it's yikes. So anyway, but it should be fun. Hopefully I catch the the holiday spirit bug. It usually has happened before now, but we'll see. I got to unpack my tree and look at it for a while, and maybe I'll get there.
Have you bought some eggnog yet?
I do have some eggnog. Yeah, I made an eggnog latte yesterday morning. It was really good. Right. It's like the precursor though. It's like, hopefully I'll catch the spirit. Then you get involved in work and you come up for air and like the day's gone and you're like, oh shit. So it's just been one of those busyness factor things, but hopefully maybe this weekend we'll catch some. We'll see.
Be good. Yeah.
So speaking of weirdness though, we've got a whole slew of appointments now. We've got January's coming, right? We're going to have a new president sworn in. And there's going to be a lot of appointments. And most of them I've been pretty excited with. A couple that are kind of weird floating around. One is weird, the other is exciting. But where do you want to start with that? Because I'm mostly interested in Kash Patel. But there was also some talk about YouTube.
3 cheers for that.
YouTube guy Brandon Herrera for the ATF. And I think my take on that, while it would be funny and not outside of the realm of possibility with Donald Trump's connections to media and pop culture figures and WWE and all this stuff.
And Barron's influence on a lot of that too.
Exactly. I think the best selection for the ATF, especially with a House majority, is that we appoint nobody to head up the ATF and we just get rid of it. Like, and I'm serious. This department was, when was this appointed? 1970, 71, something like that. It was an extension of the Department of Treasury, I believe, which is very obscure. And it was positioned well through the 80s and 90s to kind of lead the way for like the war on drugs. You know what I mean? And like to combat cartel stuff and all that. There were existing like gun restriction laws from the 60s and shit that they just kept building and building and building on.
It was supposed to work hand in hand with the DEA.
Correct. But they are under the Department of Treasury, are they not? Like,
I don't know that for certain.
I'm going to Google that while you're talking about
proper. Yeah. So the thing that with, Brandon Herrera, like he's ex-military, so he does have a military leadership background. He is an expert in the field of firearms of all the nature that you could possibly. I mean, he's been doing firearms videos for years. He's just known as the AK guy. And he's got a really good understanding of the law. And I think he might even have some small legal background too. Nothing huge, but he knows the law very well. So if you were going to put somebody in that position, and they floated around, but I mean, we thought like the concept of Elon Musk being a part of anything was weird, or the fact that the Department of Education is now.
I don't hate it, but I would just rather it just be dealt with.
But I think that's what he would do with it. I think that he would, under Trump's like green light and thumbs up, would probably do everything he could just to dismantle it entirely, because his hatred for the ATF is unquestionable. Like and to put him in charge of that organization, you'd be like, this organization should not exist legally or otherwise. This does not have a constitutional foundation. It should not be here. It should not be making laws. It does not have the authority to do so. And he understands that. So I think putting him in that role would actually more or less just be saying this is the death of the ATF.
So,
and I'd be super okay with that.
So I was partially right. The ATF was previously part of the U.S. Department of Treasury from 1972 to 2003. And in 2002, they transferred the ATF's law enforcement duties to the DOJ. And it was pursuant to Title IX of the Homeland Security Act.
Homeland Security Act. Yep.
So that's what codified them as part of the DOJ. But their entire premise was, to your point, a support organization, to my knowledge. And it's just been one constitutional abuse after the next from that department since their inception, in my opinion. But yeah, I would love to see them just be gone. That's what I would love to see.
Well, and to piggyback off of that, this is to speak of more of his appointments. They did. This was the biggest disappointment for me, other than like the kind of head scratcher for Linda McMahon at the Department of Education, which I was like, what? But the person that he picked um for the DEA to head the DEA was Chad Chronister, who was a sheriff out of, I believe, Florida, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But he got so much backlash on this from the conservative groups that the guy actually backed down today and withdrew. And so we don't have a DEA pick as of right now. But just the fact that Trump picked this guy was a little concerning because he was a gun grabbing tyrant. And on top of that, he had a pastor arrested during COVID and all sorts of stuff. He was a full on Democrat. I mean, he's a registered Democrat, and so why he picked this guy to head up the DEA made no sense to anybody. But the fact is that they got so much pushback on it. Now, if you were to have someone of his caliber in that role, and then let's say the internet rumor mill is true, and Trump put Brandon Herrera into the ATF role, they'd be at odds with each other the entire time. It wouldn't make any sense. So I'm curious as to who the ATF pick will be, because it's got to be a gut punch to the system or nothing.
Yeah.
Like you cannot put either somebody who leans into the direction of the ATF anyway, or even just somebody kind of milquetoast. It has to be a gut punch. And I think that's why we haven't seen
I think that's right.
Significant picket.
I wanted to ask, because I truly haven't followed it. Like, has there been a successor to Matt Gaetz's withdrawal before we get to Kash Patel?
Yeah. And what's her something Beebe. And apparently she's also out of Florida. Florida's just got just
teeming with cabinet members, it seems.
Yeah. But she was the attorney general down there, I believe, and she is a firebrand. And so I think that was what it was the big ask, where they knew that Gaetz wasn't going to get it. Like, so they just threw him out there to cause a stir. So that way, when they bring this lady in, it was less of a stir, and that she'll get accepted to the nomination. But what I'm hearing with Kash Patel, who is somebody I had my fingers crossed since the get for heading the FBI, and he finally got named, is that they're all surprisingly, even like what's the Alaskan and the lady from Maine, the two senators, like Collins and like Murkowski or something like that, who are typically basically just Democrats, with R's in front of their names, right? So but even those two have said, yeah, we'll green light Kash Patel. You would think that it would be the opposite. So I don't know what that is, but at least we're getting green lit on a lot of the people that Trump is picking. So I'm hoping that there isn't too much pushback, that we actually get a cabinet that's worth.
What are you hoping is the overall output or things that we can discover from the FBI if Kash Patel moves forward with this nomination?
Oh, he's been pretty clear about it. He's done a couple of interviews where he's basically like going, open transparency on almost, but not all, but almost all top secret or not top secret, classified documents.
Yeah.
So basically he's just going to open up everything, and anything. He goes, sure, granted, there are some that for national security purposes we will have to keep under wraps.
Are you going to fix the FISA warrant problem?
Yes.
That's what I'm hoping for.
And that's actually, he's addressed that directly. So, and
I mean, when I say I've been unplugged this week from anything other than work, I've been unplugged. Like I haven't I have like a literal checklist of shit I have to follow up on just to get caught up to speed on what's going on in the world. So,
but yeah, so Cash has said that that's one of the other things. So those two things right out of the gate. And then he's basically just gonna take a red pen and an axe and cut out and trim out all of the fat. He's gonna be doing a ton of firing, and then he said he's literally going after anybody who broke the law within the confines of the federal, or the Federal Bureau of Investigation during the last 10 years.
Wouldn't it be something if some of these 3-letter agencies started working together as cabinet members to actually get to the root of some stuff and thin things down, especially if there's this
compartmentalized?
Yeah, especially if the Doge department like starts to reveal, hey, this is a giant tax dollar sink. And like maybe we just corral the cabinet members and figure out how to abolish or get rid of a lot of this junk.
And I think that's actually what they're going to do. They're all going to work in unison with Doge and actually go, okay, here's all our fat. You have the authority to trim it, cut it out, and we'll figure out how the workings, afterwards. And that's fine. I would rather have a small amount of, short-term pain for long-term gains in those regards. I think that we need to trim out 85% of the federal government, and we'd be in a much better place as a nation, in a much more trustworthy place and a much more transparent place.
I hope so. I really liked the Tulsi Gabbard selection for DOD. I think that's really, really great, even though she's a Russian plant, according to some folks.
Yeah.
You had mentioned, and it was hilarious, you were like, oh no, when you were down here. And I was like, what? And you're like, something Hulk Hogan thinks that there might be a cabinet position available for him. I started laughing like, oh God, no. No.
Yeah.
I don't want Hulkamania. Could you imagine some proceeding where like Harry Hogan like just tears the shirt open right before the proceeding starts, whatever that is? That's maybe not the best idea. Linda McMahon is sort of like whatever once you look at her resume, but like maybe let's not bring the talent in the cabinet,
Yeah, and that's the thing is that he has
a bit of a checkered past.
And also on top of that, like outside of an entertainment type of job, like what are you going to give this guy that anyone's going to take seriously without automatically attributing it to President Camacho from Idiocracy?
Right.
I mean, there's no way not to make that comparison. So like you have to be careful with where you put this guy. If you decide to do it, you have to go, okay, you're in charge of his
department suddenly co-chaired with Dog the Bounty Hunter. You're like, what's going on in here?
Right. With like maybe some, FCC oversight committee kind of thing. Like basically calling in what the FCC is capable or should be doing or spending money on. Put him back over there and put Mr. Terry Hogan over there, and we'll let him Hulk out in the corner.
So one thing I have is more of a passing thought because I should have been prepared for this, but like, what do we think would be the most beneficial for like the Department of the Interior and the energy sector, like as far as governance is concerned? Because there's some obvious vulnerabilities with our electrical grid, and we have some severely overdue infrastructure pieces that need to be revamped. And, Trump's going to put an awful lot of tariffs on stuff where he's going to be passing out tariffs like he's dealing poker cards. And I think that's going to really suck for the short term. And I think it's going to be really, really good for the long term. But it's going to drive more American built innovation stuff to a sector that I just mentioned that desperately needs semiconductor based technologies that are not coming from Taiwan or China. Who would be the best, most aggressive person to make some serious progress in 4 years or less?
I mean, the obvious choice would be Elon, but I don't know if he has any more room on his plate, to be honest. I mean, the guy's got the fullest plate of any human being on the planet.
Gonna get even fuller if he's serious about buying MSNBC.
Yeah, no kidding. Which he's alluded to more than jokingly. So,
Yep.
Now that being said, who else has the moral fiber and
that's my problem, because
technical acumen to be able to do that job properly, and that is a rare human being if that person exists.
Yeah, because if you look at some of the industry titans, both on the energy sector side and even like manufacturing or automotive or any of that stuff, I mean, do you remember the bailouts, the GM bailouts, and all that stuff? Like, none of that went well. None of those people have their moral compass is so fucked up. I'd be surprised if they found their way out of the committee room. So that's where I'm like, it was more of a passing thought, because I haven't really done any due diligence on what I would be rooting for, but I think it's a massive hole that likely should be filled delicately within this cabinet, and we need to make some serious effort in that. It can't just be focused on, we're going to drill baby drill and reopen fracking. Great. That's one side of it, but like, how do we rebuild the infrastructure on the electrical grid, which is pretty commonplace around a lot of podcast circles too. I mean, it's been covered on Rogan, it's been covered on Sean Ryan. Like, I don't need to belabor the details. We all know that it needs some help, but it's like, who would be best fit in a cabinet upcoming to actually attack some of this stuff? And I really don't have an answer yet, but I do think it's important. I think it's really important.
It's probably somebody that is well known within certain communities that doesn't touch the entertainment communities that we know of. Like, there's probably a name floating out there they're like, oh, this is the obvious choice, but he hasn't done Joe Rogan and he hasn't done Tim Pool, so we don't know who this guy is, right?
I'm fine with a name as long as I can transparently look at their resume and it's not somebody from like PG&E out of California or something like that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Those guys don't even know what the earth from water is. So they already burned down my hometown a few years ago. So yeah, it's just something I was like, I wonder if that's going to come up where it's going to be a point of excitement or a point of contention, because I think it needs some serious help.
Does he have one selected already?
I don't know. It came to me as you were talking about Kash Patel. I was like, the energy sector, it might be important.
I was under the impression that for the most part, all of the cabinet seats have been filled.
And it's possible, it could be unplugged. While you're digging, some quick news, speaking of motor company and motor cars, Nissan Motor Company is a company I'm quite familiar with.
Yes,
they could be on the brink of collapse globally with only 12 months to survive. That's kind of what their stock issuers are warning. The Japanese auto firm, which employs 7,000 people in the UK and 17,000 in the United States, has embarked on a humongous cost-cutting program after suffering some ridiculously heavy losses this last quarter. It said last month it's going to axe 9,000 jobs and 20% of its global manufacturing capacity as it scrambles to reduce costs by $2.6 billion is their cost reduction schedule. And that's in the current fiscal year amid crazy sales slumps in China and the US, which are their two biggest markets. Chief Executive Makoto Uchida is taking a 50% pay cut. He just announced, please take half my pay away as I try to help the problem. Chief Financial Officer Stephen Ma is stepping down entirely. Insiders fear the moves may not be enough as Nissan struggles to stay competitive with rivals who have pushed ahead more successfully with popular hybrid-based cars. And the warnings come as a strategic deal signed with competitors Mitsubishi and Renault back in 1999 covering European, Japanese, and US markets is also probably going to end. And two anonymous senior officials at Nissan have been quoted by my cited sources, the Financial Times, as saying Renault is now looking at reducing its financial stake in Nissan. So if you've been following Nissan's story, back when their CEO was Carlos Ghosn, that guy was basically kind of held a knife to Renault's throat back in the day and kind of forced a whole bunch of stock purchases where they took over Mitsubishi and Renault. It was not quite the partnership that they were looking for. And this is a guy, to make a long story short, that wound up on house arrest in Japan for a ton of embezzlement charges and mismanaging the company. Then he snuck himself out of his house arrest in a music box after throwing a party in his apartment. They packed him up in a music case, like a guitar box, and then smuggled him in the belly of an airplane to his home country that has no extradition, where he's now hiding out, blaming all of this as some big setup, which I highly doubt. Anyway, all this to say, it could leave Nissan requiring cash backing from either the Japanese or U.S. governments over the next year just to remain in business. So if we're going to take a shot at petroleum-based fuels as a priority, that could help companies like Nissan and quite a few American jobs. If we're going to continue to carve that down in the face of make everything a battery-operated or hybrid car, Nissan might just be a thing of the past, which is crazy to think about.
Well, there's two solutions to this. One, they could just do a bait and switch and just rebrand and rename their company. I suggest Datsun.
Sure.
And just
no checkered history there.
Right. But the other thing is I found out who the Secretary of Energy is.
Who is this?
His name is Chris Wright. Chris Wright was born in 1965 as an American engineer and businessman who is the CEO of Liberty Energy, North America's second largest hydraulic fracturing company. He is the presumptive nominee for United States Secretary of Energy under Donald Trump's second presidency. He is a board member of Oklo Inc., a nuclear technology company, and EMX Royalty, a royalty payment company for mineral rights and mining rights. He's a lifelong Republican. Wright was born and grew up in Colorado. He earned a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and a master's degree in electrical engineering at MIT. He was a graduate student of electrical engineering at the University of California, Berkeley, and MIT. 1992, Wright founded the Pinnacle Technologies, a company involved in commercial shale gas, fracking. So it sounds as if this guy is the type of guy where if we were going to revitalize energy sources and understanding of them in this nation, that he's the guy to do it.
Here's my line. Like, it definitely has the chops for the job. That's exciting to hear. I hope 0% of his companies or affiliates get the contracts needed to get that back on the road, because then that would be all kinds of gross to try and unpack while we're trying to make all the swamp clearing efforts. So hopefully he's got a great moral compass, because there's an awful lot of time and opportunity, if that's the case, to fleece the American public to line your pockets with. Just saying.
I'm looking over it to see if he's stepped down from any of these things in order to take this. It doesn't really say at this point. But yeah, that would be a huge conflict of interest that would look pretty slimy on the surface at the very least. Hopefully, he does have the moral compass that we're hoping for.
Yeah.
Doesn't really give much. They live in Englewood, Colorado, him and his wife. But
interesting. He's a one small red dot in a sea of blue.
Yeah. So
wow.
Now he only to be fair, this is a pretty good sign. I'm looking at
my friend circles are trying to say that Nissan should be absorbed by Honda, and I think that's a terrible idea.
I fully agree with you on that. That being said, as the CEO of Liberty Energy, Wright earned $5.6 million in 2023. That's pennies for somebody who's running an energy company
Yeah.
as the CEO.
Yeah.
So 5.6 million, that's insanely little. So like as far as moral compasses go, that's a pretty heavy indicator that somebody's not
Yeah,
in it for
just
the bucks.
for perspective, because those are big dollars. Dave Calhoun, the CEO of Boeing, who's been on the straight and narrow forever, no, they haven't received a total compensation worth $32.8 million, which was increased from 2022 by a slim 45%. So yeah, you're right. That's pennies on the dollar compared to other like morally bankrupt CEOs that have been in front of Congress in the last 2 years, just as an example.
Yeah, and I mean he's on the board of like Oklo Inc., the company who designs small fast neutron reactors,
Mm-hmm.
EMX Royalty, a royalty payment company, and a mineral rights and mining rights. So he understands the value of natural resources within the United States.
Well, and seems to be a leader in the nuclear side of things, which I've long been a big proponent of. Like I think that's a great alternative energy to explore beyond just wind and electricity, which
so this very well could be a pretty solid pick.
I think so.
Only time will tell, obviously, but it's at least promising.
That's good.
Having looked into it. And I actually have a list of all of his cabinet picks right in front of me.
Nice.
25 out of 25 announced. So for VP, obviously, we got JD Vance. For Chief of Staff, we have Susie Wiles, who is the one that ran his whole campaign this year.
Yep.
U.S. Ambassador to the United States is Elise Stefanik, who has been a firebrand since she came onto the scene. Lee Zeldin for the administrator of the EPA, which is a great solid pick there. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. Don't really know much about that.
Not John Tim Waltz, huh? Weird.
Nope.
Okay.
I'm not real happy with this pick for the director of the CIA. Maybe I don't know. It's John Ratcliffe, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, is a pretty poor choice for that. The Secretary of Defense is Pete Hegseth, which, from what I understand, is controversial, but he has the chops to do it.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to throw as much mud at him as possible right now.
Most of these 3-letter agencies are going to roll up to DOD from a governance perspective, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Secretary of Homeland Security is going to Governor Kristi Noem.
Mm-hmm.
Secretary of State is Marco Rubio, which I am not thrilled with, but I think that was the bone he was thrown.
Yeah.
Director of National Intelligence is Tulsi Gabbard. Fantastic. Secretary of HHS is Robert Kennedy Jr. Secretary of the VA is Doug Collins.
Mm-hmm.
Secretary of the Interior is Doug Burgum, which is a good one. Secretary of Energy, like we were just talking about, is Chris Wright. Secretary of Transportation is Sean Duffy, which I've been told is a good one, but I don't know for sure. Secretary of Commerce is Howard Lutnick. Secretary of Education is Linda McMahon, the bride of
the great and powerful Vince McMahon.
Yeah, the great and powerful Vince McMahon. Okay, Attorney General is Pam Bondi.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, Pam Bondi is the Attorney General. Secretary of the Treasury is Scott Bessent. Secretary of HUD is Scott Turner. Secretary of Labor is Lori Chavez.
What the hell is Secretary of HUD? Homeland Emergency Department? What?
No, it's HUD.
Oh.
So it's, yeah.
Homeland Upside Down Division?
HUD is a... What is HUD? HUD is like something development.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Director of the OMB is Russ Vought, and the Secretary of Agriculture is Brooke Rollins. So, first of all, anybody who wants to complain about diversity of cabinet can't, because he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 women in this cabinet out of 25.
Yeah.
And then 1, 2, and this is just based off of appearance. 1, 2, 3. I would say 3 or 4, and if you count Tulsi Gabbard, who's Hawaiian, 5 people of color. So it's they just won't be able to use that as a cudgel with this anymore. So, but yeah,
time will tell. Let's hope that they can make some serious waves. You know, some of the non-official things or new departments like Elon's department, all that stuff. I mean, time will tell. We'll see.
And that's
if they can make some serious work out of this, which I hope they do.
That's just the cabinet, because you know, everything else is, you know, there's going to be other ones,
committee chairs and, you know, different things like that.
Yeah, I'm looking down the list here. You know, Department of Efficiency, you got Vivek and Elon. You've got a bunch of people who are, you know, Mike Huckabee is the ambassador to Israel. I'm looking for the senior director for counterterrorism is Sebastian Gorka. It's got a lot of smart people in here. Now, I'm gonna murder my dog. I don't know why he's barking, but he's been barking for the last 10 minutes. But I'm not seeing it. This must not have been updated since they put Kash Patel in here.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not seeing the Department of Justice. You have Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, U.S. Solicitor General Dijon Sauer, and Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General is Emil Bove. But you've got other federal agencies, independent agencies, ambassadors, special appointments, stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's looking good so far. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a, you know, 100%.
Could be way worse. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And it was way worse in 2016 when he basically was given a bunch of John Boltons and stuff like that. And so, and he just went along with it because he didn't know any better. But, you know, he now knows better after 8 years and goes, oh, I have to be much more precise and careful.
Which, yeah, he did a fair job articulating on the Rogan show, I thought. It was like, I just didn't know what I was doing back then. Like, they recommended all these people and they were not good people.
Right.
Which he did a fair amount of firing, too. So, and we'll see. Speaking of firing, Hunter Biden pardoned. Not unexpected. We were told this wouldn't happen by Joe Biden a lot and often.
A lot.
And nationally a few times between June and July. But, you know.
And by his staff, yeah.
I'll never noodle around with the American judicial system, and then immediately did. The pardoning of stuff, I want to make clear, happens with every president, pardons a bunch of stuff. And it's always partisan lashback on how could you and clutching of pearls and whatever. You raised an interesting pre-show point about if this pardon goes through, Hunter Biden is now eligible to be subpoenaed to potentially testify against Joe Biden if they dig hard enough on past transgressions and so forth, which I hadn't considered and is true. That's very interesting, but I do wonder, like, what is going to come of this, and why was he pardoned for stuff dating back to 2014? Like, what's that all about?
Well, and that's the kicker. On top of, you know, for a year and a half, them basically asking this question, are you going to pardon your son for all of his various crimes or accusations?
Yeah.
Because he has not been held to account for a lot of the things that he has done in the distant past, but also for a lot of his recent actions. And so He has vehemently and repeatedly denied that he would pardon his son. He said, "I won't do that." His staff has said that. Jean-Pierre has, KGP has come out many, many times saying that no, he's not going to do that. So there's been a lot of speculation as to what changed and why. And because he's obviously done it now. He's obviously pardoned him, and he pardoned him after repeatedly saying otherwise. So they figured that the game plan changed after he lost the debate and was told that he was no longer going to be the man running for the job. And so that put him in a completely different wheelhouse of like, well, now what do I do? Like, I could have just carried on as president and I wouldn't have had to do this pardon for my son. But things changed and timetables shifted. And so he changed his mind. Now, that being said, why going all the way back to 2014? It's very specific to 2014 because that was when he was vice president and when he was making illegal deals using his son as a proxy in Burisma for Burisma in the Ukraine and doing money deals that were illegal in China and in Russia and in the Ukraine.
Interesting.
And so that goes back to that time frame of the 2014 when he's on video saying that he basically blackmailed the Ukrainian government that said, you're going to do this or I'm going to shut off your tap. And before he knew it, this person was let go and they started investigating this person and everyone got their money. And for some reason, his son is on the board of Burisma, a guy who's never worked in the energy industry at all, ever, and is getting paid a substantial amount to be on the board of an energy company in the Ukraine. And so, like, nothing made sense. He's had a business partner who has been a whistleblower, Hunter Biden, who said, yeah, all of this is true. The big guy that all the payments were going to was Joe Biden. So, like, this is all documented, but nothing has been done about it because they've been in control of the DOJ. So the DOJ isn't going to pull a trigger on their own guys. So they have been told to stand down. And now that a new DOJ is going to be ushered in, it is prudent and necessary for them to then put the stop block on Hunter Biden at 2014. So that's why it went all the way back to that, is because Hunter Biden needs protection going back into 2014. And that's why that was a very specific thing. And then it actually, from what I've heard, is that with the way that the dates are set up, it actually sets up like a couple of weeks into the future. So it will literally open Hunter Biden up to being able to commit whatever crime he wants.
Yeah.
He can straight up murder people and he'll be pardoned for it.
Preemptively getting after it. Maybe he'll take out Diddy. Like, one of the things that bothers me is, like, I have a still small voice that creeps up every once in a while during introspection that says, how can you become a better man? Like, how can you just do better at stuff? And try to apply that. Like, what's your legacy going to be? You know? And I've done, and I'm not going to rehash the content on this podcast, but I've done a pretty big deep dive on Joe Biden going back to the beginning of his political history. And this is a guy that is the classic example. If you want one photograph, you hold up Joe Biden confidently. Like, what does an out of touch career politician look like? That stands for nothing, follows wherever the wind blows, and just tries to remain in office for reasons that remain unclear. Has no definitive signature point on anything that he's done positive for the country, and stands next to people signing whatever into law often for the photo op. That's Joe Biden. And here we are again, changing your mind on shit. You know, I'll just pardon the family. And I think you're right. It's probably conveniently during a point in time when he realized that's the only lashback he has while he has a modicum of control is to do this, because he's no longer going to be the Democratic front runner for the president of the United States, which now that race has been wrapped up. Nevertheless, like when you look back, Joe, what exactly are you standing on? You know, come on, man. Come on, man.
Do me a favor.
What a joke.
You're absolutely correct. Do me a favor. Hold on to this thought. Kind of roll with it a bit. I gotta go yell at my dog.
He's gonna yell at the dog. That's fine.
Yeah, he's been going for 10, 15 solid minutes. Fine. I don't know what's going on. My wife must be outside or something, and he's losing his mind. Hold on.
I just don't get it. Like, there's been a decorated track record of Joe Biden in every political position that he's held. And I think there's even a documentary on this, maybe on YouTube or something, that they tried desperately to, not YouTube, Netflix, they tried desperately to paint as a bit of a puff piece around it. But this is a guy that has literally backed wars after saying that he was going to stand against them. And it's like, oh, well, how are they voting? Oh, they want more of this? Oh, I'll just do that then. Like, at every single layer of things that he's been behind, it's gross. It's really gross. And I just don't get it. I don't understand, when you look back at the body in totality of your work, what it is that you're going to say has been your stalwart moment, even up to and including being the president. And if you try to hang your hat morally on ending the Afghanistan war, that caused so much more destruction on multiple fronts. You had an unparalleled loss of life that could have been completely avoided. There was no staged ramp down approach, which would have been prudent. And the world stage laughs at you for basically going back on your word, saying that this region will never, ever be a haven for terrorism. And they're laughing at it. So that's the part that kills me. That's the part that really kills me. Is like, over the entire body of work, what is it you're really hanging your hat on that all of this was for? What was it worth? You know, there's no legacy behind it. It is simply whatever benefits that you received throughout your time doing your thing in politics. And that is the type of politician I would love to see get out of Washington, D.C. The District of Communism, or Columbia, is rife with people like this on both sides of the aisle. But this is the last great move of, well, the wind blew in a different direction and there goes Joe Biden again.
Yeah.
It's expected behavior and it's gross. What's your legacy, man? What do you think it is? What do you think it is? Because I don't know what it is.
It is he'll try to say it, which is obviously easily countered, but he'll try to say that it is a dedication to the American public for his service within the United States government since, he's been there longer than anybody else. Like, he's been there since his 20s. He was the youngest senator at the time to ever be elected. And he's been grossly and criminally useless at the very least since he's been in there. So I would not consider that a legacy that you could hang your hat on. And I don't think most of the American public, I think they would agree with me on that. However, we're dealing with delusional and evil people who are, he has spent an entire lifetime in, perpetual opulence, just completely decadence.
Yeah. And I found the paper from 2020. This is 4 years ago. Like, on the economy front, right? Anti-bankruptcy legislation to agricultural reforms. He's been involved in a wide range of economic policies. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Biden's been known to be pro-free trade, voting in favor of North American, Australian, and Moroccan free trade agreements with the U.S. And the greatest economic role involved the $800 billion American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009, when as U.S. vice president, he was tasked with limiting the wasteful spending of tax dollars. And immediately we had the housing crisis. at the U.S. economy now working its way back to pre-pandemic levels. This is back then. The Build Back Better economic plan tries to raise minimum wage to $15 an hour and offer 12 weeks of family and medical leave, in addition to $400 billion investments in clean energy. But woven into this $2 trillion effort in aggregate to tackle climate crisis, which includes the promise to create new green jobs, which didn't happen, he introduced his first climate legislation change in 1986, and then has been trying to stand on environmental protections to, quote, stimulate the economy, which have gone completely overseas the entire time. His drafting of the Violent Crime on Criminal Justice and Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994 evolved from an asset on paper to liability over the entirety of his career, raising crime rates, $9.7 billion in funding for prisons, prevention programs that went nowhere, police organizations crafting legislation that saying later, quote, "You guys sat at that conference table of mine for a 6-month period and you wrote the bill, not me." Like, this is telltale flip-floppery. You know, once that bill was passed, by the way, violent crime decreased by 33%, but also everyone points to the increase in biased targeting of people of color who were arrested disproportionately in rates across the U.S., which never damaged him later on when he pretty much stood against all that stuff, saying that, well, we've got to unfuck that decision. Well, you were the one that helped craft it back in the 1990s, dude. And it goes on and on and on. You know, Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act, supporting the Iraq War, and then not like, and then going back to supporting it again. He was drafted for the Vietnam War during law school and failed a physical to qualify because of, quote, asthma, and then calling the war he was drafted into just lousy policy making. Like, this guy has been on the same both sides of every argument for his entire 50+ year career. Everything, reproductive rights, he's been on both sides of the aisle. LGBTQ plus rights, he was on both sides of the aisle. Like, this guy has
the
nothing.
Poster child. He's the poster child for where the wind blows politician.
Yep. That's my point.
That is the most cowardly, disgusting legacy you could possibly leave.
So am I surprised about the Hunter stuff? Nope.
No, not at all.
Nope.
No. I wasn't shocked at all. I saw it coming down the barrel along like the whole time. There's no way he was going to let him hang out to dry, especially with the way that the legal system's been very one-sided and very predictable as of late. It's more of a shock when the legal system actually works properly. And so in this particular case, I was like, yeah, it's obvious they're going to lie to your face. They've been doing it for years. Since the inception of this administration, they will literally just lie to your face in front of a camera, while even the same-sided media is sitting there going, well, that's not what you said a month ago. And they're like, yes, it is. That's exactly what we said a month ago. You don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Don't believe your eyes. Don't believe your ears. And, the quintessential 1984 Orwellian doublespeak, and this is
when I said I hated you, it meant that I loved you the whole time.
Right. And that's exactly what this whole administration has been. So you're right. It's absolutely not surprising in the slightest that he would go against his long-term word
that's the most consistent Joe Biden has ever been in his 50+ year political career, is the inconsistency on every major point that has come out. And that's the part where it's like, part of me wonders if it's like you made the point, this happened probably when he learned he wasn't going to be the Democratic front runner anymore. They're just going to tell him to quit his job so they can install somebody else. Maybe that's the last great act of defiance to protect exposure to criminal activity going into the future and deep into the past. Like, we're talking 10 years into the past now. But is it really, though? Or is it just another one of Joe's flip-floppery moves that when you look back at the body of work, you go, there was nothing there ever. Like, these are the people that need to be out of Washington, D.C.
Yeah. And I think an absolute gutting of people like this is the only thing that will fix the country, is to get this criminal element and the families like that out of there. But I mean, they're so embedded. It's like, where does the snake eat the tail? You know, it is exactly, it is a symbiotic relationship. You cannot have one without the other. And unfortunately, we're stuck with it. So basically, the best thing to do is to rip out as much of the cancer as possible, and then feed it a steady diet of ethics as much as we can for the longest duration that we can, and patch it up where we can, and then keep it as sick and fragile as possible, so that way it cannot become the robust monster it.
Well, and this is the part that I've been looking at for a while, because people will ask me, you know, well, what's the deep state? And I think everyone kind of knows what it is, but no one knows how to describe it. And zero people in it can articulate it other than in a roundabout, real high level way. It's kind of the stalwart influencers behind whoever's the face of the party running the country, right? It's always the people making the policies behind closed doors and running the black dollars to and from off the books, into funneling them into these different programs. Well, presidents come and go and they just kind of continue on. I think if this administration successfully rips apart the vehicles for the deep state to do their business through, that's how you expose who and what the deep state really is. If this type of stuff stops because there's no more vehicles to run these mouthpieces through anymore, maybe that's the way to do it. Attack it from the top down instead of from the bottom up, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's actually what the point of this administration is really going to start pushing. I think that's what they've been kind of indicating and telegraphing, is that's exactly what the issue is like, if you want to expose the people who are pulling the strings, you have to eliminate all of their ability to pull strings. They will then expose themselves and go, hey, like, you can't do this anymore. These are our strings. You cannot cut them off. So hopefully, do I have enough faith in humanity? Do I have enough faith in how historically this has gone down? Not really, but
me either.
But I mean, I'll take small wins in the current.
Yeah, I'm of the mind that, like, could have been way worse.
Yeah,
could have been way worse. So yeah. I mean, I suppose we'll see. And here we thought we weren't going to talk about politics the whole time. We saw some movies.
Did you have any more to say on Nissan? We kind of like,
not really. It's out there. It's a big portion of the South job market. There will inevitably be some sort of stand-in, pseudo merger, pseudo bailout, something. Like, I don't think it's just going to fall flat and cease from existence, but
I can't envision a world without Nissan.
Their failures are the systemic growth of very, very big, deep-seated, undersided problems with the car market, the dealership interstitials to the customer, the energy sector making, wild promises that no matter what, I'm promising you, oh, you don't like this promise? Get fucked, I don't care. I'm promising you that there will be no more gas vehicles in the state of California by next Thursday, right? Like, you impose stuff like that against these car markets or the car manufacturers, they're going to look at the car markets and go, well, California's off the table, but we can't dynamically change the entire R&D machine behind. You think for a second automotive manufacturers don't have a 10-year plan? They can't just rip that out and replace it because, Greenpeace politicians are waving guns in the air. So at some point, these problems need to be addressed and discussed because that's the root cause of a lot of these failures. But I don't have much more to say than that. I mean, if everyone goes the way of Lotus and just says this will be the last gasoline car we ever make, it's all going to be batteries for the future, so that we're compliant with both the EU regulations 5 plus and the USDM, not only for trade but for emission standards and everything else. You're going to go out of business on your own, because these are not sustainable alternatives. They're just not. And there's no market precedence for their success rate. So unless everyone wakes up and goes, you know what, I'm going to spend money I don't have on a new battery operated car.
Right.
The world will be so much better if I just abandon all of this. Doesn't matter my financial situation, and just give it to these automakers, because that's the policy that reinforces the way I believe, or the way I'm told to believe. Both are congruent paths. Yeah. That's the only way that they will self-salvation their way out of a monster machine that cannot just be fixed or changed or diminished or altered at the whims of a 4 to 8 year presidential term with insert name of cabinet here. So it sucks for Nissan. It's been going on for a while. I mean, if you follow the Carlos Ghosn part of this, it was really bad. But it sucks to see, because it's flowering to the point where everyone's going to see it. And I think a lot of people are going to feel it. Certainly the citizens in Japan, definitely some folks in America. And that sucks. That really sucks. Yeah. But I don't, this is the manifestation of different root causes globally that aren't just American politics, that I think should be exposed, rather than, oh shit, it's another company that mismanaged some funds or had enough poor quarters that it's just folding in on themselves. It's compound interest, man. We had a pandemic, we had a chip shortage. Like, there's a long tail on a lot of this shit.
Do you think that it will go the full collapse, or go the way of like Isuzu? Remember Isuzu? And they had a pretty robust market within like SUVs, and then they disappeared and they went primarily into commercial vehicles and freight vehicles. And
I think their risk portfolio, the exposure to risk, is much higher at Nissan than some of these other brands. It's possible they could go the way of Isuzu, and for these reasons. Let's look at Honda, for example. Honda creates engines, they create cars, they also create generators, they create some power tools, they have a few appliances out there, and they have a big industrial and commercial market behind a bunch of different stuff, where they can sprinkle their R&D into stuff like drones and battery operated airplanes and race cars and stuff like that. Nissan builds cars. That's all they do. So their risk exposure is extremely monopolized by a sector. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they do. So sure, is it possible? Yeah. But they're one of the giants, you know what I mean? And I think it's more probable than not, people will try to get in for financial gain while the chips are down. Let's buy a bunch of stock. Let's prop them up. We get a few board seats here and there. I would hate to see them fold to somebody in America like GM or Ford or something like that. I would rather
Tesla.
Tesla's not bad, but honestly, like, that's in a large part, that's part of the problem, not part of the solution. So
totally,
you know what I mean? Like, I think it's much less worse than General Motors, but I'm going to keenly follow like what happens here. Not just because I've owned Nissan cars a lot and I'm a fan of their sports car sector, just as a problem that needs to find a solution. They do have options. Some will be more favorable than others. They will probably get propped up, is my guess, but do they have enough risk exposure to fold? Yes, they do, more so than Hitachi, Suzuki, some of the other monster Japanese brands, Honda, because they have a wide footprint. So if Honda's about to go under, they can start selling off different industrial sectors.
Primarily Japanese?
What's that?
Is Toyota still primarily Japanese?
They are, and they do interesting stuff where, like, when they reintroduced the Supra, and a lot of purists hated it, it made great financial sense. They said, look, we're going to reintroduce the Toyota Supra. Everybody wants it, the enthusiast market. They should have built one with a stick shift from the get-go. They only went back and did that later to shut up some of the enthusiast and tuner community. I digress. What they did was, look, we have a car entering a certain segment in the marketplace that will directly compete with other car manufacturers' cars in this lineup. It's not a halo car. It's not a hypercar, but it's a higher end sports luxury-ish car. So we're talking MSRP on this should be $40,000 to $60,000 car. It's got to do some stuff. We want to design it for longevity. We're going to put a Toyota spin on it. We're going to own all the design language around this car. But we're not making a fucking motor for this. We're just not. So BMW, do you want to help us out, design and re-release the Supra into the market? And it will have a BMW engine in it and all the BMW internals and interface, you know, the UX UI inside the car, the software that runs it, the engine and power plant. We will take it from you and tune it to put some Toyota stuff on it, but it's a BMW motor. And you guys already have basically the specifications of the engine we would put in a car to compete in this sector. Guess what they didn't have to do? Spend millions and millions and millions of dollars research and developing a brand new motor platform and then building a bunch of machines that will build that on an assembly line for a bespoke market that may or may not take to it. That's a good financial move. That's a great financial move. Hey, this guy already has an engine. They're willing to partner with us to do this thing. So they released a BMW Z4 that looks like a Toyota Supra with a Toyota badge on it. Did that piss off a ton of people? Yeah, of course it did. It was, oh, nice BMW. But was it a smart financial move to say, we're going to bring this back, people are going to love it and buy it? The purists might not, but the enthusiast community will be satiated. We'll get to re-enter a competitive market in a sports car segment that isn't dead yet. And we didn't have to pay for a third of the development costs for this car. Yeah. Let's see if people buy one. It worked. Nissan doesn't do shit like that. You know what I mean? Nissan builds Nissan cars with Nissan motors. Now they have their luxury variant, which is owned by them, called Infiniti. All right. So they plucked an engine platform that was already existing from an Infiniti motor, but they did an in-house designed release. That was a big financial risk in a car market that is slowly going the way of hybrid because we're being told to by our federal agencies, not because anyone gives a fuck about battery operated cars, or they think they do because they think they're saving the planet. At the end of the day, well, the market isn't buying it. No, you're releasing cars that are wildly overpriced that the dealers do an intense markup on because that's your interstitial, preventing us from actually getting the MSRP value of a net new release car. And you rolled the dice on building this with all Chevy parts, all Nissan parts, all whatever. Those are big rolls of the dice. Those are huge risks based on the R&D around it. So no, Toyota's still around, but they're playing pretty close to the vest with their money. And I think you have to these days. If you still want sports cars, you got to look around and turn your hand out and say, do you want to partner with me on this? And it could be cost beneficial based on our sales volume is how many more engines we're going to buy, blah, 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 blah. And the world continues to turn. So you got to be really committed if you're going to do that. And I think that's where I spot most of Nissan's risk is they just do cars and motors for those cars and not much else anywhere else. So I think they do have a higher potential, but yeah, Toyota's still around. You know, Honda's still killing it. Hitachi's still making heavy industries as well as motorcycles, not just one thing or the other. Yamaha's doing the same thing. They make fucking pianos and super bikes. Like, you know what I mean? Like what a weird, but it works. So they make
guitars, they make amps,
they diversify their portfolios into a wide berth, and as such, it's limited their risk to certain sectors.
And chainsaws, they make
chainsaws. That's right. Yeah, and a lot of weird shit too. Yamaha makes interesting stuff. Not all of it great, by the way, but it's a higher risk factor because it is sector dependent almost exclusively, and that's the part you have to look at from a wider lens. You know, you hear the feedback, oh, you got to diversify your portfolio of investments. This is the reason for that. You are also diversifying your risk exposure to when shit goes under. And too many snake eyes have been rolled by Nissan over the last 10 years where this is almost expected, you know. But I think they'll get bailed out. I don't think people want to see this giant enterprise go away, but they're going to cut $2.6 billion this fiscal year, including jobs. That's a big haircut. So
yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
that's
okay.
I said no, I had nothing on Nissan, and then I blew up for 10 minutes. Sorry, but that's where
No,
I'm at.
I wanted to hear more about that,
Yeah.
so I'm glad, because the idea that it's such a cultural mainstay as Nissan
Mhm.
might, due to what has happened within the structure of our government in the last 5 years, has put these guys in such a dire situation that
Mhm.
they couldn't survive it. And
We're probably 35% of their overall market.
yeah,
That's a
and
big percentage. Yeah.
that's a big chunk. And so, and it's due to that we are now in the position that we're in for Nissan. And
Mhm.
and man, I had a Nissan. The first the first car I learned to drive on was a Nissan Key Cab pickup, stick shift, and red. And it was the family truck, and I learned on a Nissan,
Yeah.
and then like my daughter has a 78 Ford Courier, which is a sister to the Datsun, the old Datsun trucks.
Mhm.
And mine, I had a Nissan Armada. I loved my Nissan. And so, and you've been a Nissan enthusiast for as long as I've known you.
Yeah, for a
And
while.
so-
Like I used to be big into Euro cars. I did like Volkswagen Audi stuff for a long time, and then realized
Right.
the only place you can get parts for these things is from Wolfsburg, Germany, and they pretty much name their price on it. So I kind of got into a cheaper Japanese car for that reason. But yeah, it's a struggle. I mean, Toyota continues to show they're willing to partner with people. Like you look at the AE86 platform or the Subaru BRZ, that is a Toyota 86, and you park a Toyota 86 of the same year next to it, same car, same dimensions. They have a different bumper plate, same thing. You're like, it's because they co-developed it. Okay, well, we'll put a Subaru 4-cylinder Boxster in it. We'll churn out a bunch of 2-liter. You already have these in all the Subaru Legacies. We'll put a little 2-seater on-rails sports car that's criminally underpowered, that looks cool, that is going to come underneath the Nissan Z, the Toyota Supra. It'll be the entry-level mark. You can get this car for $25,000. High school kids can pick this car up. It'll be the next tuning segment. It's wildly exploded. Remember Scion was like their boutique project car brand for a while. They almost took that approach, but partnered with Subaru. So Toyota, Subaru.
Well, this isn't
somebody else
is
is
something
doing
that
the
a
same
lot of
thing.
car companies have done in the past. Like Mitsubishi did this with Eagle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Well,
there's a lot of those.
Daimler Chrysler strong-armed some of their patents to make that work more so than a partnership. But yeah, yes, you're right. The Eagle Talon and the Mitsubishi Eclipse were the exact same car. And so was the Dodge Neon, and it just the engine spun the other direction. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Well, I would like to hear updates in the
we'll keep an eye on
forthcoming-
Nissan. It would suck if they go out. I mean, I think they build cars in cup noodles from Nissan, or is that Nissan? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
No, we'll keep an eye on it though.
Yeah. Well, you were about to go into movies.
Yeah.
So I think we should transition into movies here. But let me get one out of the way because
Sure.
the next one is something that you and I are co-watching.
That's true.
So it'll be easier to bounce off ideas. But I am, and this is one that you will not watch. And it was actually in the theaters during your birthday, and we went and saw the beautiful mastery film of
Borderlands, right?
Borderlands.
Yeah, that was brutal. God, that was bad.
Yeah. So, but I am, as a sci-fi fan and a horror fan, have been a huge fan of the Alien series, and it has been a Ridley Scott project since its inception in '79, and had 2 great movies. The first one by Ridley, the next one by James Cameron, and then some lackluster fill in spots with Alien 3, Alien Resurrection, and then abysmal areas with the Alien versus Predator stuff, which then tried to revamp it later on in the late 2000s with kind of a touch to maybe some prequel stuff where they were trying to bring in the engineers, which was one of the races in the alien structure, with Prometheus, and then Alien Covenant. Now, the new one, Alien Romulus, very smartly put itself in between the original Alien movie and the second Aliens movie. So timeline wise, that's where it sits. And it is very comfortable there. And it was a great film. Probably the best of the true to form Alien series, throwing out all the extra stuff like Aliens versus Predator and everything.
Yeah.
But kind of the canon material. And
for the record, I have seen almost all of the Alien movies.
Right.
Don't like them.
No, you don't. So, but this one, I think what they wanted to do, because the problem with the Alien franchise is that the first one was a great thriller in space movie, and nothing had really been seen like that. And they did some really good creature effects. It wasn't really a horror; it was more of a space thriller. And then the second one was a really good story that they propped up on top of a James Cameron action film. And they did a really good action sci-fi with a good story. It also wasn't really a horror film. And then what they did is they're like, okay, we're just going to start giving this to the new up and coming director. So David Fincher, known for Fight Club and a lot of other kind of movies like that, Panic Room and a couple of others. They gave it to him, and they butchered his script, and he was very pissed about how it turned out. And it was okay. It was the weakest of the three. It was set on a prison planet, and was more horror than the other ones. And then the fourth one was Alien Resurrection, and they gave it to a French director who had done like what was the name? So it was a quirky sci-fi French film, City of the Lost Children, and brought in a lot of the actors from that and stuff. But it was goofy, it was campy, it had Winona Ryder in it, and it was clones and weird alien babies and all sorts of weirdness, right?
And lesser known fact, before Sigourney Weaver, people had to weave their own Sigourneys by hand. So.
That is true. I've heard people tell tale grandparents saying, "Oh, back when I would weave my Sigourneys," and so
just throwing it out
there. Good. But then you like skipping over the Alien versus Predator because it doesn't really pertain to the story. But then you went into the Prometheus stuff and the Alien Covenant stuff, where it really focused on David, the android guy, and kind of the build up to, because those are prequels to where we're at now in the Alien story, and those are really, I enjoyed them, but I could see how people could look at them as pretentious. They are trying to be philosophical. They are trying to be spiritual in a weird way, and so they are not of the same cloth that the original series was made, and it was trying to be hyper intellectual. And I don't think that they missed the mark on that, but I just don't think that it really wove into the fabric that was supposed to be the Alien franchise. I think that they were trying to push the limits of philosophy within the realm of who are we, where did we come from kind of concept.
Yeah, I think it was an interesting story. It was one that didn't maybe need to be told. And like the Weyland perspective is super intriguing to me.
Totally, yeah.
But I don't know. And I love the actor that plays David a lot. In fact, he's having Michael a bit Fassbender. Of a renaissance right now. He's in another show I'm starting called The Agency, which is bitching so far. But
Cool.
yeah, it was. I agree with you. It was kind of like very pretentious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this movie was refreshing. It basically, I think it recognized all of the errors of all of the
They're like, we're
movies.
back in space and we can basically taste the brain matter. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, what it did is it took all the best of those things.
Yeah.
And refined it and said we can take all of the good stuff that people liked about this series, leave out all the bad stuff, and we can actually make a movie that's fun to watch, that is engaging, and that has the same tone and feel that the original Alien and Aliens had. And so I really got into it very, very easily, very quickly. I got into the characters, they made sense. And I think they did a really good job with taking little bits and pieces, because man, you had the alien baby. It felt like a prison planet. There was references that went to the first movie, that led to the second movie, but still pulled in elements from Resurrection, from Prometheus, but it left out all of the excessive stuff. It left out all of the pretentiousness. It left out all of the need to act and be something that it wasn't.
Mhm.
And it really just trimmed the fat and created a really great space thriller with some cool gore scenes, some cool shake 'em up at the ends. You don't know who's going to live and who isn't, while recalling back to a lot of the goodness of Alien and Aliens. And so I actually very much enjoyed this one. I was a little skeptical, I was a little afraid, but I was getting good feedback from people who are also avid watchers of this franchise. So and it lived up to it. I fully liked it. I gave it probably 8 megs.
Nice.
Because of how much I did enjoy it. And the acting, the casting, they even brought in a lot of British actors back into it, much like the original. And it was great. They even have a callback to Bishop. And I loved what they were doing with it. And I think that they fixed some things, such as like the Alien Resurrection hybrid human alien. They bring in another version of it, and this one is actually pretty terrifying and really well done, as opposed to Goofy, where he goes mama and like gets sucked out into space. And it was really, really well done. So yeah, 8 solid megs.
Are aliens just created by
Xenomorphs?
Are the xenomorphs created by artificial means, or like intelligent design from either Wayland or the engineers or something, or are they their own species that are just used by these different entities, kind of the way they portrayed them in the Alien versus Predator?
That is still to be determined. That is part of the chicken and the egg scenario. That is
because I want there to be an Aliens where the aliens are fucking terrified of something else.
Yeah.
Like at some point where they're like, uh-oh, like, and they go from being the predator in all these situations to survival mode kind of thing. And then there's like some sick alien versus other type of alien fight where there's like maybe claws and like crabs and lobster tails. I don't know.
What seems to be the thing is that the engineers as a race and as a culture are the ones that basically harness something that they found. I don't know if they created it, but they harnessed something that they found, and we're going to use it in ways to make them biologically better and then spread life through this black ooze stuff that seems to be the progenitor.
That's what led the question, is because I did watch that and I was like, well, wait a minute. This is much different than corral a few of these and then use them for a sporting hunting event by the predators, which would lead the viewer to believe that it's just another species out there that is now involved in this story.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I think that we're still we don't have that answer yet as far as the storyline goes as to where they originated from. So the engineers have definitely figured out how to harness it. It got out of control.
I mean,
messed them up.
That theory would hold up way more than them existing by themselves, in that they seem to take on physical characteristics of whoever they possess before they erupt from their species type, right? So
it's an adaptable parasitic life form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But yeah, it was good. Obviously you won't watch it, but if anybody else out there is into this stuff, I do give it a good recommendation. It was very enjoyable. I will probably watch it again within next week. So
so we are watching Dune Prophecy.
We are.
Yeah.
And that is something that is on HBO Max.
It's on HBO Max. They're doing the damn thing. So Dune and I have a very superficial relationship as an IP. I just airdrop myself into these programs and just enjoy whatever the hell I'm watching, and just be like, oh, I went back and watched the original Dune recently to try and refresh, like,
the David Fincher classic.
Yeah. And a lot of it was, to me,
David Lynch. Sorry, that was my mistake. David Lynch classic.
Yeah, I kind of didn't like it, but not because of its productive qualities. It was because, in my opinion, they left an awful lot on the cutting room floor. Like, shit just didn't make sense. Like they would start a thought and you're like, oh, this will be pivotal, and then they just never come back to it, kind of thing. So you're kind of left with, all right, well, there's the structure of a universe. I enjoy it for what it is. I don't fully understand it. There's no origin story behind any of this. They're just like, guess what? You're now observing stuff as it's happening. I can get behind that. Like, there's a lot of, races and people and, empirical structures. And it's got some callbacks to other sci-fi tropes and, political tropes and different stuff. But it's not superimposing American pop culture onto a sci-fi show from the get-go, and that has never been more accurate than Dune Prophecy, in my opinion. They are really keeping the bullshit out of it. You still get the human traits and tendencies. You get the hero tropes, the anti-hero tropes, and a bunch of like mystery around the Bene Gesserit, which I've been having a ton of fun making fun of the whole time. But it's been really fun to watch, and I think they cast it really fucking well. Like, I love Mark Strong. There's a bunch of quality people in there. I'm really enjoying it. So unless they take a hard left turn somewhere and make it really dumb, and we get the dark side of trade negotiations, like Star Wars started to do, I'm really digging it, man. I love it. I'm caught up with you right now into part 3. I'm starting to recognize things from the entire body of work for the IP as being like, oh, that makes a lot more sense. There's a ton of questions now. It's a good story. It's got me waiting for Sunday, for it to drop for sure.
Yeah, I am far more involved in the Frank Herbert Dune universe than you were. I read it as a kid, and I was a huge fan of the '84 David Lynch. Even from a younger age, I very much enjoyed the film. Looking back, obviously it's a cult classic. It's not a well done film, and that has been known. But it is a fun watch if you understand, and it's also kind of boring. Like, I tried to get my kids to watch it, and they're like, "This is dumb," and I was like, "No, I love it. Don't hate this.
Don't shit on my childhood."
Yeah. And but the new adaptations of the Dune movies were phenomenal. I very much enjoyed those, and they did a good job of splitting the movie into two because it needed to be. You can't pack that book into one movie without it being 4 hours long, which is why the first one felt like it was rushed and cut off and nothing made sense and disconnected. So, but the doing it the way that they did it the second time around, they did it masterfully, and it's beautiful. I had a couple of, purist hiccups that I didn't like. Excuse me, but well, like, for the most part, It was a beautiful, beautiful film. Now, coming into this series, though, it's set 10,000 years prior to the events of Dune.
Yeah.
And what I was afraid was going to happen is that they were going to do what seems to be done these days with larger.
They're going to Star Wars acolyte
beloved,
the shit out of it. Yeah.
Right. They're going to start breaking the walls of the rules of the universe and kicking in doors and making stuff up as they went along in order to create a different universe that they envisioned over the top of this one. And I hate it when they do that, because then nothing matters. You no longer have boundaries. You no longer have rules within the universe. So anything and everything's possible, and it becomes boring because there's nothing at play. There's nothing at stake. You don't have to abide by rules. So therefore, anything can go and it doesn't matter anymore, which is what they've done to Star Wars, which is what they've done to a lot of these IPs, where they just run over the top of it with their own sensibilities and their own ideologies.
It's their own take. Yeah. It feels like, and I'm not going to beat up on Star Wars any more than I already have for the Acolyte business, but that felt like a therapy session from Leslie Headland more than it was a Star Wars story.
Absolutely.
One thing I did appreciate that not often do I say the sequel did this better, because sequels typically don't do anything better for IP that everyone falls in love with. But the one thing I appreciated, at least as an audience member of Dune 2, rather than the two new ones, is the soundscape. Like the first one, you're just watching along, and then you get that, that screaming parts of the sound, like, and you're like, what the fuck? Out of nowhere, they just start yelling at you between scene cuts. They only did that one time in the second one. I was like, thanks. I appreciate you not a cappella screaming at me in some weird tribal ambient ethereal music track. Like, so
yeah.
Well done, guys. That was great. Thanks, Dennis Villeneuve and friends.
Yes.
But yeah, one thing that I think perfectly done on the prophecy part of this is it is so far back in time that if this is successful or they want to spin it off, they have a ton of time to like explore a bunch of potentially intriguing backstories. We're left at a point in this current story where it's like, well, a lot of stuff has happened to Clan Atreides all at once.
Right.
Wonder how we get to know them as well as we do way far into the future if all of this is happening right now. Because that's a big head scratcher toward the end where you're like, oh, you got them all? Like, not all of them, clearly, but so I think with 10,000 years between the events of Paul Atreides' birth and when this story immediately starts is a great landscape. It's fertile ground to do a bunch of cool story exploring. And maybe some of my answers will be out there, because I still have a lot of questions with this universe, but I didn't read the book. That's the difference,
right? Well, this isn't part of the book series.
No, I get it, but I just mean like I don't understand concepts that there's, yeah.
And this is lore that I think is being heavily developed by his son Brian. So Brian Herbert is Frank Herbert's son, and he kind of took over the series and actually wrote the final 3 or 4 books, and they're considered to be lesser than. He did a decent job, but not a great job of kind of fleshing out the rest of his dad's kind of vision. But he does have help though, with there is Kevin J. Anderson, who is I noticed his name immediately. He helped write a lot of the books, but he's also known for writing a lot of amazing Star Wars books. He's one of the bigger Star Wars authors. So Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson are both heavily involved in the writing, so that's good.
I just audiobooked one of his books on Darth Bane, which was a really fun story.
Yeah. And so he's involved in the writing of this, which
bring in all the Andersons, dude. Get Paul Thomas Anderson in here. Bring them all.
That would be hilarious to have a Paul Thomas
Dude,
Anderson.
could you imagine a PTA version of Dune?
Oh, dude.
That'd be kind of sick.
I really would love that. Yeah.
Like Boogie Nights except Dune.
I almost made I'm sure she's probably listening, but I almost made my mom laugh, or almost made her pee herself laughing last night by really ramping up the concept. Like I built it up um, with the idea that I think it was you and I were exploring the idea of kind of a like that old what's his name Christian Bale movie.
Yeah.
The Reign of Fire.
Mm-hmm.
The drag where they unearth the dragons,
Yeah.
right? And they they unearth the dragons, and all of a sudden now dragons now exist on the planet, and they come to some realization through science or mysticism or whatever. They find out that the only people who have the capability of slaying these dragons and actually saving the world are real knights.
Mm-hmm.
And currently the real knights are actual real actors like Ian McKellen and like Dame Judi Dench and
Patrick Stewart.
yeah, and like oh, what's his name, the piano singer guy, the gay piano singer, Rocket Man.
Elton John.
Elton John.
Yeah, dude.
And
who else?
like
I think they knighted Lewis Hamilton, the Formula One racer.
Yeah, Paul McCartney. Like, and they're like, what the hell? We're the only one, and they have to be trained to slay these dragons. And I think that would be the most amazing movie of getting all of these actors who would probably do it for free just for the hell of the script because it's great. And they become and it's called the Dragon Slayers, and they literally have to go and be themselves in the movie and go like slay dragons together as a bunch of like geriatric.
Not only would that be perfect, but like if they basically talked him into like, well, it's time to pay your dues. In order to receive the knighthood, you have to actually do this film. It's part of the fine print of you becoming a knight. And then they get a British director to do this film. Like, who would you pick? Is it Guy Ritchie? Like, who's?
Oh, it's Guy Ritchie.
Yeah,
it's Guy Ritchie for sure. And on top of that, Elton John's doing the whole soundtrack.
Dude, I'm in. How do we? Who and how do we pitch this?
Yeah, it's got to happen. But so that being said, Dune is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm loving it. I'm having a great time
too. As long as, like you said, they don't take a sharp left turn.
Yeah.
They could do it any moment, but it is not preachy.
All the ingredients for taking hard lefts are present, and they haven't yet. So
right, yeah, this could become the most hyper feminist schlock job I've ever seen, and they haven't done it yet.
Well, we're
literally dealing with the history of the Bene Gesserit
and their affinity for ancient eugenics, which
yeah.
Kind of a sticker point where you're like, you're doing what with the DNA? Yeah. Oh, you're like shaping marriages and selective.
And although it's an expansive universe, and it's dealing with families, like basically the Harkonnens and the all of the regular families, the Atreides family and everything. But it does have a large sandbox to play in.
Yeah.
However, I don't feel like that they're reaching outside of that sandbox. They're playing within the rule structure. They're actually playing with stuff that actually makes sense for the Dune universe. And I don't feel like that they're creating, midichlorians or any nonsense like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're telling a story through the eyes of the central figure in the Bene Gesserit order at the moment.
Right.
And it is doing some very cool flashbacks where it's not, pause for net new story explanation. It's like you're kind of wonder what happened to her between then and now, and it's revisiting that and it's showing it to you. But yeah, it's got some ingredients there where it's like, ooh, we could see a left turn here pretty hard, but so far, so good. And I do want to see another. I'm interested in more than. Like, I definitely want to know what happens with the Harkonnens and the Atreides, but I want to know what other royal families across there's a word for it, but across their universal governance structure. I don't know what they call it. They call it the
Empire.
Yeah, basically the Empire. I'd like to know about more of these other families, and also like where the current emperor came from. He has to be coming from one of the families not named Harkonnen and Atreides and stuff. So I'd like to see how far they explore without it being super convoluted, basically. And maybe they will. But so far, so good. I'm digging it.
Yeah, absolutely. I am looking forward to every Sunday on when it pops. In fact, I waited up on Saturday night.
Oh, really?
My wife will tell you that I was up till 1 waiting for it to drop, because normally they drop it right at midnight, and
Yeah.
they didn't. And I was like, oh, well, fine, I guess I'll have to watch it tomorrow. And so I ended up watching it on Sunday, Sunday evening. But yeah,
Yeah, I got to it pretty late Sunday night because I was involved in a bunch of other chores. But
it's been a while since I've actually been into any new modern series that they've propped up, and I've been like, I don't want to watch it. I don't want to watch it, especially all the Star Wars stuff.
yeah,
So it's been a little while since I've been happy, like probably since Game of Thrones, like that. And this does have kind of a Game of Thrones feel to it in some aspects, but I do.
HBO definitely knows the formula to draw eyeballs. So they're probably, if there's any notes from the studio, it's probably like, here's the rhythm. You need to start hitting these notes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and it definitely is following suit for sure. I'm also passively watching. I think it's on Prime, maybe. It's called The Agency, and it has Michael Fassbender in it. He's like the central figure. And it is all of the parts of the spy stuff that are not as fun to me, which is the case working stuff, the influence stuff. Like I want ninjas, I want cool guns, I want sports cars and shoot 'em up scenes and stuff. But it is intriguing enough. It feels very Taylor Sheridan type of show almost, but it's from the perspective of sort of the more technical administrative side of the CIA, but you're following different stories and stuff like that and settings. And it also has the guy that plays, I never remember his name. He plays Jim Gordon in the Batman movies.
Oh yeah.
He was Bernard in Westworld.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about.
And I love him. He's great. So he's in it. There's some hitters in there, and it's been fun to watch, but it's very slow moving for like the first 2 episodes so far, but I'm enjoying it. So we'll see. I'll have more on that later. But anyway, yeah, Dune is great. I'm looking forward to Sundays.
How many so far? And it's hard to give something that is only 3 episodes in a truly official scoring or rating. But
yeah,
if I was to base it off of the 3 episodes, I'm in. And it's at least a 7 megs for me.
I was going to say, I'm hovering around 8 megs myself on this one until they make a weird turn or something is just, brutally overstated when it shouldn't be. But love Mark Strong too. I think he's a great actor. He does a lot of good acting just with his face without much dialogue. I just love that guy. He's great.
Yeah, agreed. So real quick, the other thing that I've been watching that we just started the other night by actual recommendation from our kids.
Yeah.
Is I don't know if you're familiar with the Canadian comedy show Letterkenny.
I am.
The spin-off series, which is solely based around hockey, which we're a hockey family. So is the show Shoresy, which is a character that the main Kelso played in Letterkenny. They gave him his own spin-off series called Shoresy. And you have to be into that poorly acted, scripted, quick dialogue, quick-witted, fast-paced kind of comedy that this thing is kind of geared towards.
Yeah.
But this one has way more heart and charm than Letterkenny even did. And I think he recognized from Letterkenny where he could pull and go, okay, now I know how to write better.
Yeah.
And now I can write a story where it actually is heartfelt and charming and really well structured. And we're really enjoying it. We watched the whole first season, which to be fair is 6 episodes last night.
They're like
Um,
27-minute long episodes, probably for commercial breaks. Or
yeah,
are
I
they
think
like
so.
full hours, like 40, 42 minutes or whatever?
I think they're half an hour long, 27 minutes or whatever. But yeah, it's great. We're really looking. There's 3 seasons. We'll probably polish off uh season 2 in the next couple of days and go from there. But I've been enjoying that too. So
Nice.
I have a question for you though before we go into the
The gospel.
the gospel. What, and I think I know the answer to this for you,
Sure.
but what is your favorite Christmas movie?
What do you think my favorite Christmas movie is?
If I were to guess,
Yeah.
I would say Rudolph the Red-Nosed
It's
Reindeer.
not even close. It's Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer by a mile. That's it. Burl Ives, the snowman,
Yep.
Herbie doesn't like to make toys. He wants to be a dentist. That kind of shit. Every
Yeah.
time. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It marks Christmas for you.
That's it. That's the one. Yeah.
It is the epitome of what Christmas should feel like to you. It's what invokes the good childhood memories.
Yep. Claymation, Yukon Cornelius,
Yeah.
Abominable
Yep.
Snowman. It's got all the ingredients. That's the one. Yeah, I never I watched A Christmas Story like every year, and it's adorable.
Mhm.
But I don't resonate with it the way that it's like, oh fuck yeah, Rudolph's on. Let's go.
Yeah. 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 If you have a chance, though, do yourself a favor. There was a sequel that was made a couple of years ago for A Christmas Story
Mhm.
where the same cast comes back.
Yep.
And he actually goes back, and it's set in the 70s.
Mhm.
And he goes back to his home after his father passes away. And I'll tell you what, man, it was such a beautiful homage to the original Christmas Story.
Yep.
They did a phenomenal job. If you
Made a
haven't seen
bootleg DVD of that one.
yeah.
I've got it.
So cool, good. My all-time favorite Christmas movie is, I think, without a doubt, you could probably guess mine.
It's Elf.
No, it is not. Although we did watch that already this year.
I don't know. Like I would chuck either A Christmas Story or National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation because they're both dope. But I have
yeah, they are. They're both
yeah.
dope. But no, It's a Wonderful Life.
Wonderful Life. Yeah.
Yep. So that's
See,
far and away my favorite.
I should. I don't package that with Christmas films. I should because it is. But I just think of that as like Americana classic cinema, like echelon movie. You know what I mean? Like it's
Merry Christmas, Bedford Falls.
Yeah.
So it is a Christmas classic, and we watch it every year on Christmas. But it is my favorite Christmas movie of all time. So
nice.
But yeah, this is
Yes.
for those watching and not listening, I am showing the tattoo I have on my arm of none other than Jimmy Stewart, who plays why am I'm blanking on his name. I say it every day, all day long, and for some reason right now, I'm blanking on the name of Jimmy Stewart played. My wife is like freaking out. My mom and my wife are freaking out right now if they're listening, due to the fact that
I mean, when the lights are on, it's a blank moment.
yeah, dude, for sure. My wife has the matching one. Mary. Mary is the name of his wife, and I tattooed Mary on her arm. And for some reason, I am having a hard time coming up.
Is it George Bailey?
It is George Bailey. Thank you, George
Yeah.
Bailey. Yeah. So I have George Bailey on my arm, and she has Mary Bailey on her arm. So man, that I'm embarrassed. That hurt my heart.
Oh, I just
That
had
hurt
to
my
stretch that out as long as we could.
Yeah. So, but yeah. So I have a George Bailey tattoo. He's been a hero of mine since I was a kid. He's the epitome of a man's sacrifice for others, and I've always looked up to him. So,
Who did that
but
one, by the way?
oh, now you're gonna make me think of another name. My Mandy and man, I can't remember.
That's okay.
I can't remember his name. No.
It's been a while.
Yeah, he's a very dear friend of mine that I can't remember his name, who actually spends his time here and in Vegas, and I visit him while I'm down there.
See, this is just a time to punish you with the name game while you're like on the struggle bus.
My brain is not working right now, but yeah, I can see his face.
On the first new moon of the 11th year, who was it that? No, I'm just...
But there is another movie that's coming out, and I don't really want to spend a lot of time on this. I just want to make the public aware of it.
Or we could take a shot or two. Yeah.
Oh, dude, this is ridiculous. It is a movie that is a rated R film, and it is coming out here shortly. And it is from what I gather, a comedy, and it might be a body horror, dark comedy horror.
Interesting.
How it's being described, right? And it has the Academy Award nominee Amy Adams in it, and a cast of what seems to be regular folk, which I say that loosely, but it is a werewolf movie, and this isn't a niche film. This is a big time, big production, big project going to every movie theater in the country in December. Huge Searchlight Pictures film. And it is a werewolf film. She plays a stay-at-home mom who is run down and not loving life entirely. I mean, she loves being a mom, but she's just definitely run down from being a stay-at-home mom. Somehow she becomes a werewolf. The movie is titled Night Bitch.
Yeah.
Night Bitch. And that is the title they decided to go with to display all over commercials and stuff. Night Bitch. This is the society we live in now. It actually looks fairly decent as a film. I'm actually probably going to see it, but it is really weird that is what we've decided is acceptable to just throw out there on a marquee, and just go, come see the 7 p.m. showing of Night Bitch.
That's the common referential name for a female dog in breeder circles, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That's not why they call this Night Bitch, though.
I think it's a double entendre.
I think so too. But I think it's like, no, it's because of that, and because she's like a werewolf dog person lady.
Yeah.
Academy Award nominee Amy Adams. Wait, she won an Academy Award, didn't she?
I think she did.
Yeah, I think she won an Academy Award.
So, but yeah, pretty wild. Yeah.
I probably will wait till it hits a streamer.
I'm sure you will. It's not something. Yeah.
It's been a while since we've done a vampire or a werewolf movie, so I think we're due. Wasn't expecting that when you explained it to me in the pre-show. But I'm like, oh, well, I guess it's time. We seem to fade back into this every 5 or 10 years, but,
Hey, pull us out of this depravity and with some gospel.
No, let's do it.
Yeah.
So we're on chapter 29, friends. This is the Gospel by Gen Z. You should be aware. We're talking about the sower parable today. And it says, after the chat was full, Jesus told them a parable saying, a major creator collabed with some smaller creators. With one girl, he did a dance trend, but she was self-conscious, so she left her in drafts. With another, he did a fit transition trend, but she heeded the haters and deleted it at only 300 views. With another, he did a lip sync trend.
Wait, pause.
Yeah.
We did this one last week.
Did we?
Yeah. I'm recognizing the lingo.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Yep.
Okay, chapter 30. My bad. It's been a minute. Rich fool. I'm going to try and get through this one. Someone in the chat said, Ayo, CEO of WSG, tell my little bro to quit playing and split our inherited bread, for he was salty and low-key stressing. Holy Bro answered, who made me the CEO of What's Good? And then told the chat, bread ain't life, fam. Bread ain't life.
Amen.
And the chat let him cook, and he told them this parable. An influencer made so many stacks one year, he said, let's go. My grind is over. Time to live your best life and secure a Lambo. Because we're here for a good time, not a long time. But the Divine G said to him, bruh, you didn't understand the assignment. Nor what here for a good time and not a long time even means. For behold, tonight I will check all your receipts. Who did you come in clutch with besides for yourself? How's that Lambo going to get you to the Bussin' Kingdom? Sacred Blood said, that's what's up for all y'all who don't secure God's bag first. And it has a beautiful illustration of the parable of the rich fool, which is an actual print painting of 1627's Rembrandt of the parable of the rich fool, which is super fun. Yeah. I will actually go to the appropriate page before closing. Chapter 31 is Depart From Me, which we'll get to later.
Nice.
Good times. So, dude, happy holidays, man.
Same to you. We got a couple more Tuesdays before the big day, but I encourage you to put on some music. Bring, you know what you need to do is you need to bring some scents, fragrances, stuff that reminds you, because that's the sense that actually brings you into the mood.
Yeah, I just got some actually too. I got those plug-in air fresheners that are like apple pie and cinnamon flavored, and
perfect.
I got some new hand soaps that are like gingerbread. So I'm trying.
Put on some music and get into the spirit. I'd hate to see you go through the. I know how much you love this time of year, and I'd hate for you not to catch it.
Yeah, you know, and one of the things we used to do growing up, because we had zero monies, is we would drive around and go look at Christmas lights in all the different neighborhoods, and that was actually fun to do. So I might actually hop in the discount Lambo. No, probably hop in the old Nissan Noodles and drive to different neighborhoods and stock cool Christmas lights and see. One thing I did, I want to say it was last year, maybe the year before. I'd never seen anything like this, and it was actually a really fun experience. You basically pay a $20 ticket, and it admits whoever fits in the cab of your car. And you drive through and you tune your radio station to the one they prescribe. And you basically drive back and forth through a series of lights in this massive parking lot, and then you end on the other side. And what you're listening to on the radio, all the lights and snowmen and stuff are dancing to each of the songs on each of the scripted parts of the drive-through. And all the money went to a children's hospital type of charity down here, which was really cool. So I might go do stuff like that too, just try and get out, because I've also been indoors pretty much for a while. So need to break out and get some air.
Agreed. Well, I hope the bug catches you soon. So.
Yeah. Well, Merry Christmas to everybody. Our schedule will be admittedly very weird with travel and stuff on my end going to and fro around the end of the month. So we'll be packing in a few more Tuesdays for you before we go. But happy holidays. I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thank you for everything. And we will see you in a week.
See ya.